Emma Stone, actor, dancer, singer, producer, and now 2 times Oscar winner.
Thank you so much. Don't look at the back of my dress.
She has captured the hearts of millions with her charismatic sense of humor.
I am here to bang the hot guy that hit on me at the bar.
Undeniable talent.
You're not important. Get used to it.
And those mesmerizing big green eyes. Her journey from the early days to her current icon status is something truly incredible to witness. Who is this actress on the silver screen? How did she become the Hollywood sweetheart we all know and love?
God, I'm sweating. I'm sweating.
In this episode, we will talk about Emma Stone's journey so far and briefly discuss these 2 movies, Easy A and Poor Things, as we believe they represent significant milestones in her journey, and hopefully by the end of the episode, we can figure out the answers to these questions. I'm Darren.
And I'm Tim.
This is MovieBeings.
Beings? Beings.
Well, let's talk about Emma Stone. She was
Yes.
born on November 6th, 1988 in Scottsdale, Arizona. But from a very young age, she discovered her passion for acting. Right at the age of 4, like she described herself to be very bossy. And she knew what she wanted.
Well, there you go.
But she was part of this local theater production, and she debuted her stage presence in the year 2000 when she was 11 years old for the play The Wind in the Willows.
Wind in the Willows. Good old classic, that one.
But she was homeschooled for 2 years, and then she appeared in another 16 productions.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, she did have the passion for acting.
Well, yeah, I was like, oh. I always think about that, like doing it at like a young age and being like, I feel like it's such a devotion to do all that kind of stuff, because I feel like it takes away, like you said, she was homeschooled, so probably didn't have to worry about school too much, but
yeah,
that's what I always think about, like takes away a bit of the normal life that you give up to like, you know, go for something like that.
Yeah.
Go into acting.
And I think during this time, like she kind of showed her personality traits. Like she really clear on what she wanted, and she was okay. I want to be acting, so I'm just going to go on the theaters and perform. When she was 12, she traveled to Los Angeles to audition for Nickelodeon's All That. Have you heard of this show before?
It sounds familiar, but it doesn't come to mind.
So this is like a comedy children television series where they do a lot of comedy sketches. Think Jordan and Peele, but like for children.
Is it like a Saturday Night Live kind of thing, but for kids?
I want milk.
But she didn't succeed. She didn't get a role.
Okay. Probably didn't let her do what she wanted. That's probably why.
Well, I mean, when I did the research on the show, it seems like it's right up her alley. You know, like they do a lot of comedy sketches. But she later told this story on Jimmy Fallon. She was like, oh, when she came to the audition, she didn't know that she had to prepare 3 characters for the audition.
Oh my gosh.
And they told her this 5 minutes before the audition.
Oh my god.
She was like,
well,
oh, you're next. Oh, by the way, you have to bring in three characters.
Oh my god. That sounds about right.
But despite not getting the role, the 2 characters, well, out of the 3, she only mentioned 2. One of it is a cheerleader who couldn't spell, which is quite funny, I think. The second one is a babysitter who is possessed by the devil.
Classic.
I mean, you know, like she went to a Catholic school. I think that's where she drew the experience from. I mean, it would have been interesting to see Emma Stone acting on the show, because in 2019, the Jonas Brothers were the musical guests. So they could have been on the stage together.
Yeah, maybe, but...
But then, you know, with this setback, her parents gave her some private acting classes with Bob Cooper, you know, who is a person that she respects really much, and you know, who did an interview with her prior to her Oscar win.
Oh, well, that's cool.
When she was 15 years old, she made a big decision to move to California and become an actress.
The good old dream. I feel like you see that in TV shows and movies. I'm going to go to California and go to Hollywood to become an actor, because that's how it works.
Tell me this, Tim. Like, you've been to America. Why do so many people want to move to California and Los Angeles?
Well, I think initially that's where a lot of the film studios were for the big films and stuff. Because I think there's like Universal. I'm sure WB has stuff there, like just where they do all their filming.
Okay.
And you just assume a lot of big stars live there as well. So, you know, you like might clash and it's like, oh, you know, I might get a role there. It's weird. It's just like being in proximity, you think you're going to get to it. Because that's like the idea.
Okay.
Because even in shows where it's like, or movies that have the idea of like trying to be an actor or try to get to Hollywood. They're always like, I've got to go to California. I've got to go to California.
But I guess in terms of logistics as well, like if you live close to the
Well, that's the
studios,
thing,
it's easier
yeah.
for you to get the auditions.
Yeah, well, getting auditions, but like getting it's the other like the hard thing.
Yeah.
Because I could imagine like how fierce the competition is.
Yeah.
And then you never know what the studio's like either, because sometimes they're looking for one thing.
Yeah.
And if you literally aren't that, even if you have
Yeah.
like a good audition, they're probably, this is not what we're looking for though.
Okay.
So I could imagine that like it being like as a young teen to be like, oh, trying to get in.
Yeah.
Be
But
tough.
but then we came to the well-known story of the PowerPoint presentation. Have you heard this story before?
No, I haven't.
So on some magazines, they said that this is the story that she's been telling since 2009.
Oh god.
So at the age of 15, in order to convince her parents to let her go to California, she made a PowerPoint presentation called Projects Hollywood, and then she put Madonna's Hollywood song in the background. Apparently, the presentation went really well, and then she convinced her parents to let her go to California. So she moved to California with her mom into a small apartment in 2004. But of course, like a lot of the actor stories, her beginning was not on Sunshine and Rainbows.
Yeah, it's always going to be tough.
Yeah, she mentioned in an interview that she auditioned for every single daughter roles for all the Disney shows, and then she got no callback.
Especially with Disney, it'd be hard because I don't know how many you've seen, but a lot of like young actresses, well, they like start in like the Disney process at an early age, and then they get all those roles. So I feel like they stick with people they know. You speak of like the Jonas Brothers and stuff.
Yeah,
But you think of all like the Disney actors now.
yeah,
Some of them did all right, some went crazy because
yeah.
like that's what
yeah.
doing such a young age can do to you. But yeah, I'm not surprised because they usually like their people, and also it's like a newcomer on the scene is like, well, I assume they'd have to do something pretty amazing, and even back then you don't know what they're bloody going to ask of you if they want you to do the role either.
But do you think that she would be a suitable member of the Disney squad?
Like I think because if you say 15 when she was doing all this,
Yeah, so she moved
so
to.
she might have been
yeah,
a bit old at that point because I
Yeah,
feel like
okay. Which point?
because if she's hypothetically if she started at a younger age, she might have a better chance because they're like, oh, Disney can get their fingers into her and like craft what they want. Because I feel like that's what they do with a lot of the actresses and even actors. They kind of like craft them into what they want for their Disney Channel stuff.
Yeah.
And then, trying to get out of it's always tough as well because then you
Yeah.
get pinholders like you're the Disney actress.
Yeah, fair enough. But then she kind of got her debut on television as Laurie Partridge on VH1 talent competition reality show. And, I found a clip of her singing a song. We will show it on the screen right now. But then she had a guest appearance on Louis C.K.'s HBO series, Lucky Louie.
Oh, God.
I saw part of this script. So,
Yeah.
But, like her acting was okay, but I think what I saw here is like her fearlessness of the role. She played a rebellious teenage daughter, and in some of her scenes, she just cursed nonstop.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, like she really lived the role. But then in 2007, that was, as she said it, her rock bottom. She auditioned for Claire Bennett in Heroes.
Oh, yeah.
But then, of course, we all know that the role went to Hayden Panettiere.
Which might have been good for her, considering how her career has gone compared to where she is now.
Yeah, I think so.
It might have been
Yeah.
like, it's always rough looking back when it's like, oh, that would have been a big role for
Yeah.
anybody, really.
Yeah.
Especially when she hadn't had a good crack at anything, really.
Yeah.
When it's more just kind of like minor roles on TV or skits as well.
Yeah. And during the audition, she told this story on Vanity Fair that she was in the room next to the audition room, and she could hear the
Hear what
casting
they're saying.
directors
Oh, God.
giving the role to Hayden.
Oh, well, that's even worse.
yeah.
You don't bloody have it.
So she came home. She had a meltdown that night, and literally she's like, "Oh, this is rock bottom. Like, I'm not sure what I'm doing here."
How old was she at this point?
So this is in 2007.
Okay.
So she was like maybe 20.
Okay.
Yeah, 19, 20. Yeah. But, just like any superhero's journey, it's always the darkest before the dawn, right? So her luck changed later in 2007 when she got her debut in the comedy Superbad, co-starring Jonah Hill and Michael Cera. I mean, you said, I mean, as you would. But
It was huge at our time. I don't know what it's like in Vietnam, but in Australia it was huge. I remember being in high school and everyone was like, "Oh, you watch Superbad? You watch Superbad?" And I'm like, "Ugh."
Well, what do you think about Superbad?
I think it's like a fun teenage getting up to bad crap.
They want to start a party.
We want to sneak into a party. We want to buy liquor. We've got our shady friend who's got a fake ID. You know.
What was the fake ID name again?
Is it McLovin or something? McLovin.
I love it.
Like, it's got some classic lines, but I haven't watched it in a very long time. It is very much like a teen movie that it's like, wow, look how... Because it was very, like, upfront, like a lot of swearing, a lot of, like, kind of... At that kind of humor... Well, that was, like, the evolution of that kind of humor being very...
Yeah.
Like, upfront with that kind of stuff and dealing with, like, a lot of sexual stuff as well. Like,
yeah.
I remember that as well.
Just a bunch of horny teenagers.
Yeah, exactly.
To
Like what would you
party.
expect of people like 16, 17?
Yeah.
Like talking about trying to get with women and how can we get girls and like how can we get liquor and stuff like that. And then just like the whole journey. Because she's like, I think...
I love the interest of Jonah Hill.
Of Jonah Hill.
Yeah.
And she's like, I think it's like her party. She's like the popular girl or something. And they were trying to get the invite or trying to get there and they didn't know how to do it or something. But
yeah,
it was like, at the time it was huge, but I haven't watched it in a long time and I probably don't plan to.
but I think this is also the launch pad for Jonah Hill and Michael Cera's career as well.
Yeah, definitely. Because it was just like, it was such a launching point and they were both great in it. Like, both really funny.
Yeah.
And then obviously you can see where they are now.
Yeah.
They've both had pretty good careers.
And also during this movie, the director, Greg Motolas, asked Emma to dye her hair red. And this became her iconic image for the next decade.
Kind of the curse. It's like now you're known as the redhead girl, essentially.
But she's a natural blonde.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. So, but then in 2008, I think she kind of made a bad move. So she acted in The Rocker in 2008, starring Rainn Wilson, Dwight Schrute.
My middle name is Kurt, not Fart.
Yeah. So this is like a very, very unsuccessful movie. She was like a supporting actress. She played the bass guitar in this movie, so she learned how to play the instrument. But the character that she was trying to portray is supposed to be a straight face, a bit emo goth girl.
Kind of not quite her style.
Yeah, it's a complete opposite from her Superbad character. And then I don't think that role was
or
made for her.
even going forward in roles she usually does. It's not really quite her thing.
Yeah, so that role was not well portrayed. The movie bombed at the box office. But you know, like people would still like had hope for her. Like, oh,
well,
let's
still
try.
like what's this, a second movie? So it's like, you know, can't take anything.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah,
you have to be atrocious for people to be like, oh, we're not casting you on anything.
Yeah. But then later that year, she also starred in The House Bunny with Anna Faris.
Which I've never watched and I don't plan on.
But, you know, like this movie is quite charming. You know, it deals with quite a few sensitive themes. Like Anna Faris plays a former playboy from the mansion. And she's helping a bunch of unpopular sorority girls to become popular.
Oh, God.
Which sounds a bit very
Is it one of those
superficial.
kind of movies of like, oh, here's the ugly women and now we make them beautiful kind of trope, which was huge then?
Yeah.
It's just like, here's this obviously beautiful woman with glasses on, but she's ugly because she's got glasses on.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much how you sum up. But, you know, but this movie performed much better at the box office because...
She was pretty big, Anna Faris, right? She was,
yeah.
I'm trying to think of... I just think
the
of all
scary
those...
movie.
Yeah, all the scary movies, all those kind of like, those movies. But she's funny. She's like...
Yeah, and I think she was still married to Chris Pratt at this time.
Oh, no.
But anyway, so that movie performed really well, and Emma Stone got a lot of praises. And then in 2009, she was very busy. She appeared in 3 movies. The first one is The Ghost of Girlfriend's Past with Matthew McConaughey, which was loosely based on The Ghost of Christmas Past.
Yeah.
When you go through like the past.
I'm just trying to think if I've watched that movie before. I don't think
so.
so.
With Jennifer Garner as well. So Matthew McConaughey played a playboy, and then
they are actors at that time. Probably would have been in that movie.
And this is quite interesting because in 2009, I think Matthew McConaughey has already established himself as a household name for romantic comedies.
Yeah, that's what he was then.
Yeah,
because I think this was probably like he did some serious stuff, but like this wasn't before probably where he like hits his peak. Yeah. It's like just before probably. I'm trying to think when it would have been when his peak. Was it before? Was Dallas Buyers Club? I think that's when it really when he proved himself.
It was before Lincoln Lawyer. Based on one of his interview, he said that after this year, I think he got offered like $14 million to play like a romantic comedy, and then he just turned it down. And then for one whole year, he didn't get anything else.
Well, there you go. Because that's what I mean. Actors can get type rolled pretty easily.
Yeah.
But we're not talking about him today, are we?
Yeah. No, it's interesting because in this movie, Emma play the ghost of the girlfriend's past. In the past, she had giant red curly hair, braces.
She's like the teenager kind of thing.
Yeah. And then she's also appeared in the first Zombieland.
Yeah.
With Jesse Eisenberg, Woody Harrelson, and Abigail Breslin. And
because that was kind of a cult classic, I feel.
I think so. I really like Zombieland
because it is a very fun comedy movie. That's why when I got I'm not surprised it got its second movie, even though that doesn't really hold up as well to the first one.
For the sequels, I mean, it's fine, but like the first one has this charm.
It's kind of sad that they made another one, honestly, because it kind of it's always sad. Like, obviously, they always want more money, so they're like, can we milk a bit more? When it's like, oh, just let it be its own thing, kind of, But that's what Hollywood's like.
Some of the critics, they mentioned that her performance in Zombieland is good, but it could have been better.
Because she's like she's like another love interest of like the main character, and it's just like, because she's not like a huge role really, but she's just kind of like, I haven't watched it in a long time as well, so I could be wrong, but I couldn't blame her for being, because I wouldn't say it wouldn't be like a super interesting role. It's just like your love interest in like a zombie apocalypse with was it a sister or like
a sister? Yeah.
Yeah, and they're like trying to survive and stuff. So. Yeah.
But at least like she wasn't that typical damsel in distress.
Well, that's
she was
that's
smart.
What you think about it. Yeah,
she's smart, and she's a few critics says that she's appear older for her age.
Yeah.
So she's very witty.
Are they meant to be teenagers in that movie? I can't quite
remember.
I
don't think so. I don't think they mentioned the ages.
Okay. Yeah. That's what I was trying to remember, if she was meant to be playing a younger person or an adult.
Yeah. I mean, but also during that year, she also appeared in Paperman, starring Jeff Daniels and Ryan Reynolds.
Oh, damn. I don't think I've ever watched that movie or heard of it.
Oh, that movie was a massive failure, apparently.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, but like the story was about like Jeff Daniels had an imaginary friend who played by Ryan Reynolds, and then they form a friendship with Emma Stone, and then
that sounds so stupid.
I mean, you have Ryan Reynolds to play an imaginary character. What else do you expect?
It sounds about right. Like, it sounds right for him, but I'm like, it sounds so stupid.
But yeah, so that movie, didn't perform well. But of course, her performance for the character was praised. She was like the only shining spotlight in that movie,
which is always good. And now she's got more work at this point. Now, like, she seems to have got 3 movies in 1 year or whatever, compared to like just trying to get in.
Yeah.
So it's like a huge step.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And then her breakout role came in 2010. 2010, starring her as Olive Pendergast in the Easy A movie. And I think this is one of the movies that we will discuss today.
Yeah. Which is good, because that's when we were discussing this before, I was trying to remember if this was her first like major role, or where she's the main actress. And I'm like, oh, it is. It did work out, because I know she did do some stuff before this. Yeah. And I couldn't quite remember if she had a lead role in anything else. And I was like, oh. Because even when I remember this coming out, I don't know why. I don't know if I knew who she was at that point, because obviously I would have been just coming out. I would have been like 18 at the point, just finishing high school. And I was like, oh. It does kind of like, the kind of like sexy woman in a movie. Like, oh, okay, like get the, teenage boys to watch it, essentially. Because that's what I felt like it like leads into a bit.
Yes.
Not like, I don't think it would cater for young teen girls too much, but like it does go over some like things with it, which I feel like are kind of like good things to discuss. But yeah, it's like, I remember I thought it was like just like a fun comedy, like romantic thing. And it's like wasn't my thing then, not really my thing now, but I thought she is good in the role of kind of being like a bit of an outsider, a little bit of a geek, and essentially telling lies to like talk herself up, so that she doesn't have to do this thing with her friend, and then it goes out of control. Which I always find it's funny when it was just like, I didn't want to go with my friend on a trip with her family because her family are like super weird. And then it's like she tells this whole lie about that she went out on a date with her brother's friend from college or something. And
older guy.
And she's like telling how well it went. She's like, oh, you slept with him. You lost your virginity. And then she's like, oh, I guess. And then she's like a whole other lie about that. And then the whole school hears about it.
But I mean, during this film, like it's strange because I recognize her from Superbad, and it's now she's in her own movie. Yeah, but also for this movie, she read the script. And then she found out, she thought that the script is super unique and it's very different from what she has read before. So she approached the director prior to the casting process. She's like,
oh, wow.
Like, I love this project. I want to be a part of this project. And then when they did the casting, she was one of the first people who showed up. And of course, she got the role. And there are still some of her audition tapes on YouTube at the moment.
Oh, are they? Oh, God.
Which is quite funny. I mean, she literally just exactly the same as the character.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Hence why she got the role, probably.
Ish breast size and the occasional corny knock-knock joke do enter this video blog as evidence in the case against me.
But also during this movie, when I watched it, I kind of liked the idea of in 2010 like how rumors spread, like through words and then flip phones.
Yeah. That's what I was going to talk to you about, because for me this is when I was like just in high school or coming out of high school, and like wasn't to me, but like personally in my friend group that were dealing with drama.
Okay.
And like everyone's side of the story and like everyone's saying things kind of like in this when people like get out of a room and it's like, oh, you know, you're sleeping around, you're a slut and like that shit. And it's like, oh, no one really knows the truth.
Yeah.
Except for the people paying to pretend that she slept with them.
That is such an interesting story because I think that
because it is like an interesting concept.
It is, and the thing is that she didn't have to do anything crazy for this movie. She literally just pretended to be this persona, and
especially for like a young actress trying to be her own film, like they usually like to be a bit more provocative, to be like, oh, this is what we want you to do to be, but the provocativeness is just like her act. Because it's not who she is. Because early in the movie, she says her favorite teacher's like, I can't remember his name, but they're like, is it, what are they dealing? Is it morals or is he literature? Because they're like reading like a book.
Yes.
And like later in the movie, she's like got this persona and he's like, oh, this is not you. And it's like, oh, I watched the movie about the book because I didn't read it. No, she's like, you read it, didn't you? He knows her well enough that she's like, oh, she tries.
Yeah.
Because she's a smart girl in this. Smart woman. So it's like, oh, compared to everyone else who's just kind of like messing around.
Yeah.
As in usually in high school, people don't care that much.
Yeah.
They're always worried about like their boyfriends or how people perceive them, and, you know, and stuff like that. Yeah. Which is like kind of the crux of this movie where she's like the only one like, trying at school a bit, but not worried about everyone else, but she just gets dragged into it all.
Yeah. Like, have you ever been in a situation like that when a rumor just spread it without control?
In a way, yes, but not like related to me, just to like a friend group. Because we went through some drama about like boyfriends and girlfriends and people breaking up and who's with who. And I was like friends with the guy and the girl. So I heard both sides of like the story and stuff. And I was just like, even then when I'm like, 16, 17, 18, and I'm just like, I don't want to deal with this shit.
But yes, this movie performed really well at the box office. It has a very modest budget of $8 million.
Wow.
But then it scored $75 million.
Damn. That's huge, really.
Yeah.
And like, it's just because it's not like anything too groundbreaking. I just think it's like she's in a fun role and she does really well in it.
Yeah.
And like the story's just kind of like, I think it is a little bit relatable. I think that's more like the American side of high school. Like, I don't know what it's like. It wasn't like that. Like, we don't really have cliques that I remember in like high school. It's not like, oh, here's the cool kids, here's the sport kids, here's the jocks, here's the smart kids, here's, no one really like cliques, like they do in America. I feel like that's a big thing in America where it's like, oh, here's all the people. Like they show that here's all the Christians that hang together and stuff.
that was funny.
That was weird. Amanda Bynes, is that her name?
Yes.
She's in this. This must be one of her last movies before like she went insane.
Yeah.
Which I feel bad about. That's why I remember watching this. I'm like, I feel so bad for her.
Yeah, like she's a very good actress, and in this movie, like she's. I
think she's funny.
Like she's supposed to be a comedic relief, but she looks very very different from her earlier roles.
I can't remember because obviously she was like getting hard on the drugs and like she was dealing with a lot of mental issues.
Yeah.
Because I grew up with her like being in movies and stuff. And it was just like, oh, it's funny to see like how quickly she went, like she fell out after she was not like a teenager essentially, and like how because that's like the other side of it. Like we talk about like starting out young as an actress or an actor, and how it can like mess up your life after you kind of get into your like adulthood and people don't want to cast you anymore.
Yeah.
Or even how that affected you, how people maybe treated you like an adult.
Yeah.
Even though you've been like 12 or 13.
Oh yeah.
Because I don't know, who's the actress I'm thinking about?
Miley Cyrus.
Well, she did that. That was like a little bit different, but the girls from Charlie's Angels,
Drew Barrymore.
Drew Barrymore. Like, if you've heard some of her stories, it's like insane. As like a young girl and the stuff that she was like around and did, I'm like, God damn.
Maybe we can cover her stories in the next episode. Point.
Yeah, but it's kind of crazy. Like, I feel bad. Like, that's what you feel bad because it's not like they're not like bad people or anything. It's just like they get to a point where they're popular and famous, and then they get all these options for shit, and they're like, oh, this seems good.
Yeah.
And then it drives you like out of it.
Yeah. And this movie also deals with quite a few good themes as well. I think like coming of age and finding yourself, and also how far would you take a lie.
Yeah, because that's like, I think that's a huge thing, especially when you're younger, like, because you want to be, especially in this situation, like, oh, I want to be popular and I don't want people to judge me for the whole thing is like, oh, you know, girls aren't interested because you haven't slept with anybody, essentially, because that's why all the guys are like giving her coupons and stuff.
That's so funny. So funny and sad, and then a bit dark at the same
that's
time
what I was
well.
thinking. I was like, oh, it's a bit like, oh, because what was the first guy? He wanted to give her like a coupon for something, and it's like, oh, do we have sex? It's like, oh no, you can say you like groped me a little bit and stuff, and I'm like, oh, this is like a little.
That conversation was a bit strange, you know, like when I think she was walking on the pool, and then the guy approached her, and she's like, you know, he told me, and then you know, like, what can I get for this? And then the conversation like really turned, you know, like oh. But I think it was really well acted because at that point it's like a turning point for her. Like this is a decision.
She clearly does it in mind, like, well, I'm doing this now, kind of thing. Like this is a persona I've made for myself, and I'm living with it now, essentially.
Yeah. But the thing is, it came from a good place. Like she wanted to help the guy.
No, because that's like they have the conversation after. She's like, oh, if you honestly asked me out, I might have said yes anyway.
Yeah.
He's like, would you? He's like, no. Did you see you just try to solicit me for fake sex?
And also, Lisa Kudrow was also in this movie.
Well, I was going to say that, and also covering for the girl from Friends for sleeping around with students.
Yeah. Well, that was a big twist. I really didn't see that coming.
I thought it was hilarious as well. Like, it made perfect sense because at this point she's becoming friends with Amanda Bynes, who's like the Catholic girl, because for some reason she thought she like changed her because she's like, oh, she like reached. I got through to you. You know, you're gonna, not gonna slip around anymore. And then like they become friends. It might have been like a 5-minute montage where they're like, oh, hey, how are we going? Yeah. And then eventually Amanda Bynes finds out her boyfriend got chlamydia, and then she's like, and then he just said it was her. Yeah. It was Olive, because that's like the rumors is, oh, she can
sleep with everyone.
Yeah, so she's like, oh, he can take the blame. So then Amanda Bynes finds out and like,
goddamn,
turns around and goes aggressive on her.
Yeah, and also this movie deals with homosexuality as well. Like
a little bit.
Like
it was still
the first customer. Was
her friend who was gay.
Yeah.
Who didn't want to be perceived as gay because, like I said, the whole like belonging. They're like, oh, maybe they think you're gay. They're going to treat you differently or less.
Yeah.
Which was, I think this was like maybe. Because it does feel a bit weird still now, but like back then it was still like a thing about like, oh, people are going to hate you for being gay, which is sad.
Yeah.
Because even I still remember in high school, like it's just like, oh, you're so gay. Like,
yeah, they use it as an insult.
An insult. Like, if people say it now, and like not meaning it like literally, it's like, oh, we hate you because you're homosexual. It's more like just because they've used it before and it's like, oh, it's just an insult.
Yeah.
But like back then, like I think that was like at the point where it was still kind of like, oh. Because that's why I was still surprised seeing this movie. It's like, oh, I've got to pretend to sleep with a girl so people don't think I'm gay. Even though in the movie they're like, oh, that's the gay guy that slept with her. Even though they still relate to him as like the gay guy anyway.
But and this is one of the themes that the movie discussed that I really enjoy. Like they took it that far. Like, okay, so there's a Christian group and also there's a gay guy who wants to hide and want to fit in.
Yeah, there's like different sides to it, which is interesting.
Yeah, and I think that's why, like this movie did so well at the box office, because it's kind of edgy in a way, but in a very charming way. Like it's led by Emma Stone's performance. It's very likable. And I must say, Stanley Tucci, who played her dad,
he's a great actor.
Is
I love him.
super open-minded.
Yeah, he is. He's super funny at some points as well.
Like, have you seen some of the scenes that the parents, like the conversation they had with Olive?
Yeah, it's like great.
And her younger brother is black and adopted.
Adopted. And what did they say? It's like, he's not my son. He's adopted? Like,
And so like, what? Who told you?
who told you you were adopted? How did you figure out? And they're two white people, obviously.
Yeah,
so it's
yeah.
like...
It's like, oh, this is very edgy. This is very daring.
It's kind of the humor I like. It's very much like on the edge, but it's like obvious.
Yeah,
it's like,
very obvious.
And it's fun. It's like a bit of fun. It's like, what? You're adopted? Who told you? It's like how obvious it is.
And the actress who played her mom was great as well.
was
Like,
great
she was
as well.
very, I don't know. Like, was this a different time when the parents were this open-minded, or are they not?
That's why I thought, like, if there was anything to take out of this movie, like, that's kind of like the ideal parents, kind of like someone that's like willing to joke around and make fun, but like willing to talk about the issues, because obviously she goes to them when she's like, it's gotten too far. It's like, yeah, I'm kind of like in this situation where people think I've slept with all these people, and they're like, well, you know, as long as you're like being yourself and like trying to be, you know, it shouldn't matter what all these people say and stuff.
Yeah.
Which is weird, because she does seem, her character does come across as someone that doesn't really care about what other people think, but the lie just became so big that it's just like, it wasn't even about that anymore. It's just like, how do I navigate this now?
Yeah, and I think it came to the point of I think she recognized the I guess the giant consequence of her actions is when she realized that her counselor slept with a student, and then she lied for her to save a marriage.
Yeah, because
she thought,
because she was married to her teacher, her favorite teacher, and that's
Yeah.
probably. I thought that was insane when she's like, "I'll take the blow." I'm like, bro, this is like insane. I don't know if any student would be like, "I'm gonna cover for my like cheating teacher."
yeah, but I guess, you know, it shows her character. Like, she's a very kind person. She wants to help people. But then I think when it got to a point where she rushed into her teacher's office and then she just told him the truth, and then I think it was a very pivotal moment, because people would say that, oh, the truth will set you free. But I think at this point she kind of destroyed the person that she kind of likes.
It's like if you're building your house with a lot of bad wood, and then one of those bits of wood break, and then the whole house comes tumbling down. That's kind of what happened. Like, all the lies have like fallen on each other.
Yeah.
Which isn't a bad thing, because even near the end of the movie, where she kind of like, she still kind of flows with it, but then she's like, it doesn't matter anymore at this point. Because it was like, the big thing was like, obviously the whole sleeping with that boyfriend, and it wasn't really her, and it was the teacher, and then I was like, because the teacher, she does like a big act at the end to like try to get people to watch her like
yes,
her
yes.
vlog.
Yeah. Webcast. That's
Yeah,
what it's called.
webcast. I was like, oh
I think
my God.
I think this is when Facebook just started.
Yeah, it was
2009.
like the beginning of like the internet, like YouTube and stuff. It was just like just starting out. So it was like kind of vlogging with videos and stuff. But she did the whole lie of like, oh, I'm going to go sleep with this sexy guy. Come and watch it. I'm going to stream it all.
Oh, you got catfish, bro.
And then, and then it was just her unraveling the whole story. Because from the beginning of the movie, we're at the start of that vlog, and she's like explaining the story from then.
And I think this movie has got a bit of a Woody Allen's in that as well, because she's breaking the fourth wall. She's talking to the audience.
Yeah.
And then you know, it became like part of the story.
Because it is kind of weird, because she's talking to the audience, but not really talking to the audience. Because it is still, she's talking to literally her school.
Which is quite interesting, yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of like their parents in this movie, I really like the short interactions that they have with Olive. I still remember this one point when she went on a rampage to sew the red letter A on all her outfits.
Yeah.
And then her dad would come in and is like, "Do you want to talk about it?" And then she's like, "No." And then and he's like, "Give them hell." And I really like the interactions.
Supportive, willing to be there, but if they don't want it, it's fine to be like, okay.
Yeah, and I think it's super important. Like, you know, like if you give them the trust, and and they would think that, okay, you know, I can trust my parents.
It's different from like it's like, oh, we're going to take things away from you because we believe you're doing something bad. It's like, I'll let them, if they think they're going to do the right thing, have like some trust in them and like back them up a bit.
Yeah,
which is nice. That's what I mean. Like, they're pretty good parents, and it's like, oh, it's a good showing of that.
What? Oh my God! Who told you?
The interaction that she had with her mom on the hill was a bit weird. Like, her mom was just telling her,
it was funny.
Her like, "Oh, I used to be very flexible." Like,
yeah,
what's this? I don't want to hear this.
It's just like, just the uncomfortable mum talks. Like, come on, please, why are you telling me this?
Just fast forward. But yeah, so this movie, you know, really launchpad her career. And I guess we can move on to the next stage of her career.
Yeah.
So after this movie, she got to host Saturday Night Live in 2010 and 2011, which is one of her lifelong dreams.
And it's always huge, because usually they always get like big famous people to do it.
Yeah.
And especially at that point, this is like Easy A is like her first big film for her.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a coming out to like, oh, she's pretty much on the point of making it now.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, during this point where she is trying to adapt to the new fame.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
And she was telling a story of being approached by a paparazzi. And the story was like this. So he took a bunch of photos of her, and then he would approach her and he would show her the cameras, and he was like, "Hey Emma, look, I'm deleting these photos. You see? So this is my card. If you ever come out of your house in your pajamas, or if you are going somewhere, just let me know, and then I will be there." So the idea here is he was trying to show her that he's cooperating with her. Like, I took a bunch of photos of you, I deleted these photos, you see, and now you have to give me the exclusive right to your photos, which is a very, very strange approach.
Very manipulative
Very
way.
creepy.
To be like, hey, I could have just done this, but if you tell me when you're going to be in a position where I can take the photos, it's literally trying to make work. And from what I've seen from a lot of paparazzi stuff, it's not really good.
Yeah, I mean, like,
very cutthroat.
It sounds very crazy. And then I think during this time when she was, becoming the star that we all know, she in 2011 she also appeared in 2 other movies: Friends with Benefits, directed by Will Gluck, and also Crazy Stupid Love.
Yeah.
With Ryan Gosling and Steve Carell.
I haven't watched that. I think I've heard that was a good film, so I probably should. Like I've said, I'm not a big romance guy.
I watched it twice, Tim.
Well, there you go. So it must be all right. You watched it a second time.
I mean, Ryan Gosling and Steve Carell has such good chemistry.
Steve Carell's always funny.
Yeah. But I really love the montage when they went and shopped for his new clothes.
Is he like the ugly guy that they need to make beautiful?
Yes, and Ryan Gosling is supposed to be the mentor.
Yeah.
And then he has one of those Velcro wallets.
And is that the first movie they're in together as well?
I think so, yes. With Julianne Moore as well.
Because there's quite a few actors and actresses in this, isn't there?
Yes.
So I got a huge list of like big names. So
Yes.
it's like big for her as well to be in like, I'm included with these big name actresses now.
Yeah, and I think this is the first time that she worked with Ryan Gosling.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was saying.
And
So I'm
then
like, oh, that's kind of like
became
an
the whole
interesting
thing.
point. Yeah.
And this movie did really well in the box office. On a budget of $50 million, it's nearly triple at the box office.
Well, I was going to say, it was probably mostly to pay the actors, probably more than I would assume.
Was Steve Carell famous at this time?
When did Office? Because Office, I feel like, was his big launching point.
Yes.
But he probably wouldn't have got huge money, but I think he would have been known at this point. I'm trying to even think, because I
think he was in like the 40-Year-Old Virgin before.
I think that, because I remember that movie when I was a teenager as well, because that was a huge movie.
Yeah.
Because that probably would have been his launching point as well. But I'm trying to remember if that's before or after The Office. I want to say it's before or after. Sorry.
Maybe after The Office. But also at this point, she didn't want to be typecast anymore. So, like up until this point, she has always
like the love interest,
like love interest of someone. So that's why she decided to star alongside Viola Davis in The Help in 2011.
Yeah. I know the movie. I've never watched it though.
It's such a good movie, Tim. So it's based on a novel, and with a $25 million budget, it grossed $260 million.
Damn, that's crazy.
It's more than 10 times. And, of course, Viola Davis was phenomenal in this movie.
It's kind of funny that she's been in a lot of low budget films.
Yeah.
Then I'm sure we're going to get down to some of the movies that have big budgets.
Yeah.
That probably didn't do too well.
Yes. Well,
I'm sure Darren knows which one I'm talking about.
Yeah, I do know exactly what I'm talking about. But The Help was her highest grossing film. At that point.
Yeah,
at that point.
Which is crazy. What's that? 25 into 250. That's like, is that 100 or 1,000% increase or something?
That's
insane.
crazy. And then when we get to 2012, she portrayed Gwen Stacy, Spider-Man's love interest.
Because I think that would have still done reasonably well.
Oh yeah, I mean the global revenues was $760 million.
Pretty good for a superhero movie back then.
Yeah.
Because I think that's just after Iron Man, right? And there was no universe at this point.
Yeah.
Spider-Man was still one of the biggest like comic book movie draws in cinema.
And this is a reboot.
This is a reboot after the Tobey Maguire.
Correct.
I've forgotten the director's name.
Sam Raimi's.
Yeah, Sam Raimi's kind of go at it.
Yeah. Well, and here, they spark a romance with Andrew Garfield, and they went on to date for a few years. But I think after this, she didn't do that much acting. In 2013, she only did the voice acting for The Croods. like the animation, which
Still
was
did well.
nominated for the Academy Award for Best Animated
Well,
Movie.
there you go.
I mean, like, you know, like, if you follow her story so far, like, you can see, like, her progress and also her resume, like, getting more and more highlighted.
Yeah. And her jump from like romance to comedy, because that's usually the start for most careers, because that's like the easy thing to get in. It's like a little bit low budget, but it's a good way to get into acting, and then like moving out from there, like moving into more serious roles. Even though Spider-Man's, I would say it's a serious role, but it's like a big budget, a big box office film, and show that you can be in a big box office movie and be successful.
Yeah, and I think, you know, like, even though she was playing a love interest at the time, but I think her character was not like the typical damsel in distress. You know, she's smart, she's witty.
Yeah, she does. Usually, she plays like a smart female that's like woman that's like in that kind of role. She's I don't think she's ever been kind of like the dumb, you know,
no, never.
That kind of stereotype usually that they usually used to do then. Not so much now, but
yeah. But before the production of this movie, she admitted to the team that she hadn't read any of the comic books. She was not familiar with the character. The only source or reference that she has of Gwen Stacy is from Bryce Dallas Howard's portrayal of her in Spider-Man 3 with emo Peter.
Yeah. Well, that was the best Peter.
Well, we need to put the dancing clip in here somewhere.
Oh my god, that's still one of my favorite scenes in film.
You seem like to like the dancing scenes in the bad movies.
Because it's just funny. They're usually
like
just like
in
really
Morbius.
hilarious. Yeah, because they're just like, why is this here? And it's just hilarious. Like him walking down the street, like flipping up his collar and like flicking at all the women and stuff. It's great.
But I think Spider-Man 3 was like the end of the Spider-Man series.
Because there was meant to be a fourth one.
Yeah, but I don't think.
And then I assumed how this one did, they're like, oh, well, we'll just
Probably
do a
not.
soft reboot. Or just like a reboot, essentially.
Yeah. But yeah, she also appeared in another movie with Ryan Gosling, the Gangster Squad.
Did I watch that? I feel like I don't know if I've ever watched it, but I've seen like bits of it.
Yeah, I haven't seen it either, but I don't think they did that much marketing for this movie. I think she was playing like a damsel or femme fatale in this movie.
Yeah.
And of course, we got to 2014, Spider-Man 2,
The greatest movie in her repertoire.
if you have seen our other episodes, you know exactly what we're talking about, and you know exactly how we feel about.
Yeah,
this
we
movie.
don't need to delve too far into it.
No, we don't need to.
What was the budget with that? Did you get that for the budget for Spider-Man 2 and what it made?
No, I
don't
didn't
know
get
how
that budget.
Okay, I don't know, because I'm sure the budget would have been like 100 and something million or something.
Something
Probably
big.
would have. I don't know how much it made, but sure wasn't.
I'm pretty sure during 2014, superhero movie was like up in the popularity.
I think it was starting to become. When was Avengers? Avengers was before that,
13,
right?
just before.
So yeah, so it would have been like they probably would have been having big hopes for this because you can see in. I'm talking about Spider-Man 2, and I didn't want to speak about it. And then they're like, because you see at the end of the movie, they have like, they try to show there's like a universe. They're trying to show all the bad guys and stuff. When it's just like, obviously.
No, we don't need to
make some good movies first before you worry about that stuff.
But yes, so I think it was a bit of a dip in her career at that time.
Like I don't think it's on her. Like it's a terrible script and like there's a lot of bad things going on with that movie that's like out of her control, I would say.
But her acting was fine.
I think it was fine.
Yeah.
Like it's still just like similar role, love interest.
Yeah.
And obviously she's dating Garfield at this point, you know. That you can see the chemistry, but the writing, like I've said before and other stuff, the writing is just bad.
Yeah. And I think, you know, I guess the reputation when you are the only shining spot in the bad movie, it's not a bad reputation to have. You know, like when you're...
It's not bad, because that's like, even with Garfield, I don't think he's bad, but it's just such a bad movie.
He's not suitable for Spider-Man, to be honest.
Yeah.
I don't think he's suitable for the role.
I think he is good, because if you see, he's really like, he loved the role and like was ecstatic to do it, which is always great, but that's what I mean. When you get... It's hard when you've got... I don't think either of those movies are like great. So it's like, it's hard when you don't get like a good movie, because I do think the first two Tobey Maguire movies, I enjoy them still.
Yeah, I enjoy them very much. And after Spider-Man 2, we got to Birdman, the Oscar-winning movie.
I love that movie. I think that was like one of the first movies I remember where I'm like, wow. Because I think this was the point when I started. I was already watching a lot of movies, and I remember watching this and I'm like, oh, this should win a bunch of Oscars.
Well, to be honest, I like the movie, but I think the movie is just very hard to rewatch. Because it's like...
I was thinking about rewatching it, but I was like, maybe... It might be a movie we talk about on its own at another point. That's what I was thinking about.
I watched it in theater, and I was like,
well.
this is amazing. But then I don't think I can watch this again.
Because
it's very exhausting to watch like a one-shot movie.
I don't think... I just think I do think you're right in that it's not like a movie you can just sit down and kind of put on. It is something you should probably pay attention to.
Yeah.
But that had a great cast.
Michael Keaton.
I really wish Michael Keaton won the
Best actor.
Oscar for that. But I can't remember who. It was a pretty strong field that year, if I remember correctly. So I was like, but he was great. That's what I mean. Because I feel like after that, he was like, I'm doing movies for money now. I don't like this. I put it all out there and I didn't win. But I will also say Oscars isn't like the end all be all of defining your career.
Yeah. But it's always good to have that on your resume.
It's just like a little sticky star badge on. It's just like a little confirmation from probably a bunch of old dudes that are just like.
Well, speaking of Oscar, in 2015, she was in La La Land.
Still haven't watched it.
I still haven't watched it. I'm so sorry for the Emma's fan. But I mean, no, sorry. I lie. I watched the first 10 minutes of it and then I fell asleep. I'm so sorry.
Well, it is a musical, right? I'm not a huge fan of musicals. That's why I always heard all the hype about it, and then I was like, oh, I don't know if I would enjoy it, just because I'm not like a huge fan of musicals. Yeah. And that's why I was like, I don't know if I should watch it.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we can cover that movie
at another time, maybe.
And then she took a big break between 2016, so she didn't have any movies then. In 2017, she appeared in one movie, Battle of the Sexes.
That was a good movie as well. I remember watching that as well when it was in the theatre. Because her and Steve Carell. And it's a very interesting story because I don't think I knew anything about that kind of story because it's like the start of women's tennis or when women's tennis was starting to get big and trying to make a name for it. And because that's the whole thing. She's saying that they deserve to get paid. They deserved all the stuff the men get. And then this old tennis player's like, oh, no women could beat me. And at the time, Margaret Court, who's an Australian tennis player, who's a bit sexist as well. Yeah. She was kind of not the best person to kind of represent the women's side of things. And she plays him first and she gets beaten. And so Emma Stone's character, I can't quite remember her name, which I feel bad about, but she's like, oh, I'll play you and I'll make sure to beat you. Even though even in recent times, Serena Williams is I can't probably beat a top 100 tennis player. Yeah. Which is no doubt against her, who's probably one of the best tennis players to ever live. Yeah. But it's just kind of what it is. But it is an amazing movie, and I do think it is worth a watch. It is very interesting and goes over a lot of interesting things and interesting topics. Yeah. Because the main role, she is a very strong, kind of demeaned, feminist, wants to do well for women. And that's what Margaret Court was kind of taking that back a bit. Even though she was an amazing tennis player as well, but not really fighting for, women, which is
Yeah, it's supposed to be. Fair enough. And then in 2018, she had her first collaboration with Yorgos Lanthimos in The Favourite. It's supposed to be a period comedy drama, and she played a British woman.
I haven't watched it, so
I haven't watched it. But apparently, she struggled with her British accent because she was surrounded by British actors, and she was the only American actress.
Oh God, maybe I want to watch it just to see how that is.
But she was nominated for Best Supporting Actress for that movie. And then again, she took a break for the rest of the year. In 2019, she appeared in Zombieland Part 2.
Well, there you go.
And we all know how that went.
We already slightly discussed that, and I don't know if we need to go into it anymore.
But I think I kind of figure out why she's taking all these big breaks. Because in 2020, she founded her own production company, Fruit Tree. And I think this is where she wanted to venture into different avenues of the entertainment industry. Yeah, and I think now they are producing a few projects, and they also produce Poor Things, which we will discuss a bit later. And then in 2020 we had this small glitch in the map. It's called COVID-19. It took only 3 years out of people's lives. And in 2020 she did The Croods Part 2, the voice acting. 2021 she did Cruella de Vil.
I never watched that. I heard it was not that good.
Yeah, I mean, Emma Thompson was in that, but I watched some of the trailers. I think that movie, I think they were trying too hard to
This was the time when Disney were trying to monetize their old animated films. They're still doing it. And I've only heard bad things. I haven't heard about one good, because I think the first one was Beauty and the Beast.
With Emma Watson.
Yeah. That was like the first kind of live action Disney movie.
But I think that movie still did pretty well because they didn't stray that far from the source materials. They literally just copied shot for shot and then just replaced it with like real life action actors. They didn't change anything. So I think that people with nostalgia, they still think like, okay, you know,
that's what they're trying to go for, right?
Yeah.
They're trying to get the nostalgia, but a lot of those movies are really good. So it's hard when you like do a very subpar job of like recreating it. Even though Cruella, I think it was like a prequel.
It's supposed to be a prequel
to
the origin story.
Yeah. So I was like, I remember watching the 101 Dalmatians as a kid, but I wasn't that interested in like Cruella's story, I guess.
Yeah, but I mean, like that 101 Dalmatians is like super iconic, and I think it's very hard to recreate something or try to add to the story that is already loved by millions of people.
And also doing like a villain, and trying to like go from that angle as well.
When did Deadpool come out?
Earlier than that, right?
2019.
Yeah.
I think that's why they kind of had the idea. Oh, like the anti-heroes is getting popular now.
She wasn't really an anti-hero.
She was a villain,
and that's why it's weird to be like. I heard that she was more of like a hero or an anti-villain in this movie more than what we see her in the Dalmatians.
Yeah,
but you know, it is what it is.
And then she didn't have any feature films in 2022, and then we got to the year 2023. We got Poor Things. Yorgos.
What year is it?
2019. Yorgos Lanthimos.
You're doing a better job than I would.
Well, I mean, my partner called him the Greek yogurt.
The Greek yogurt.
I think it's going to stick from now on. But Poor Things is one of the movies that we want to discuss today that really solidifies her journey to become like the Hollywood icon.
If she isn't already there.
But I think this movie is really encapsulates like her acting range, because before that, she only appeared in like very few dramatic roles. A lot of them are comedic roles, but in this, she did a lot of different things.
Yeah, because she has done a lot of dramatic roles, but I feel like this also delves into her comedy acting a bit as well, because she does. Even before like Poor Things, she's a bit more like physical with her acting as well, which I think shows well in Poor Things a lot. If you watch a lot of her acting, it is a lot more physical, especially because she's meant to be playing like a young girl for most of the film. Yeah. So it's like, as a child, run around, get into trouble and stuff. Yeah. But that's what I thought. I was especially like when we get into the whole story of it, but it's like there's a lot of different things going on in this film that like a hard like. I feel like her like comedy delivery or like funny delivery like is a good way to cut through maybe some of the serious stuff that's actually going on. Yeah. But it just does a good job from her character point of someone who's like new to the world, kind of experiencing things for the first time and doesn't understand the underlying issues of everything. Because I think that's like a very big point of this film. But she does an amazing job. I definitely think she deserved an Oscar for this.
Yeah, there was a competition for the Oscar during this during the 2024 Oscar award. She was competing with the actress who played in the Dawn of the Flower Moon, the Blood of the Flower.
Yes, I haven't even watched that
movie. The Killer
movie.
of the Flower Moon.
The Martin Scorsese film.
Yeah, and the lead actress was like nominated for the Best Actress
as well.
But yes, let's talk about the first thing that I really enjoy about Poor Things, which is the cinematography.
Yeah, it's amazing.
The fisheye camera, it like right off the bat, right in the first scene, it really captures me because I can already tell this is going to be a weird, a bit eccentric movie, because of the perspective that we have.
Not the Frankenstein monster that's her father.
I literally said to my partner when I watched this movie, it's like, this is like a remake of the Frankenstein.
It's like, I think it's like almost like a tale on it, but like I think the story is different.
Yeah, it's very different, but
I feel like he could have been a Frankenstein monster.
He could have been. Well, I think
even
he
though,
was.
Even though when it kind of delves into his story a bit, it's not the same. It's worse, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, like he did give us a few breadcrumbs here and there on the past of the events.
It's all terrible.
It's all terrible. I mean, I kind of understand why he has this kind of idea of how to like deal with people. But the coloring at the beginning, the black and white, really shows the artistic side. And all the visuals, I'm talking about the background visuals, you know, like inside the house, like, it's just not a plain color house. It's got a lot of the wallpapers on the wall, and throughout the movies you see the different visuals in the background as well, which
Very
is,
stylized.
which reminds me of Alice in Wonderland.
I haven't watched that movie. Oh, you mean like the old ones?
The old cartoons.
Yeah.
You know, because
Kinda
a lot
like-
of things happening in the background, a lot of bright colors, a lot of strong imageries.
Which is kind of interesting. Like you say, it starts out in black and white, and then when we jump to color, you can kind of see how much color is in the world and stuff. But that's from the viewpoint of her character, Bella, because she's like, black and white's like the beginning of her life. That's all she knows. It's kind of like clean cut. That's all she knows. But when she gets out into the real world and goes to color, she's experiencing everything as it is. And learning about everything. So it's like a great way to like visualize and show that through film, which is always great.
Yeah, and her acting, like when she first came on the screen, was a bit weird.
Her slamming onto the piano, her just like sitting there and it's like,
yeah. And she was acting like a baby.
Yeah, because she was.
She was a baby. Well, only inside her head. And I think it's phenomenal to watch that journey throughout the movie. I mean, there are so many aggressive scenes in this movie. But before we talk about her performance, I want to give a bit of a shout out to Mark Ruffalo as well.
Really? He plays a great creep.
Oh, I mean, like we always know him as, you know, like the Hulk and a lot of the good guys characters.
Yeah, usually that's his role, is usually kind of that. He does do a lot of movies. That's the thing when I think about Laos, like,
yes,
he does do a lot of roles. But yeah, normally he is kind of that. He does come across as like a good guy usually. Yeah. But in this movie, he is not.
He was not a good guy at all. But yeah, so I guess we don't want to provide any spoilers yet because the movie is just out.
Yeah.
But I think we can talk about the underlining theme of the movie.
And I was going to say, even Willem Dafoe. I feel like everyone that acted in this did a really good job.
I mean, Willem Dafoe, like, I don't think he has ever had a bad role.
Like, even because I've heard him do some interviews about it, even like when he talks about bad movies, he still like praises them and he thinks like he enjoys them, which is what I think it comes across in a lot of his acting, where he can, like, you can see it in him. I don't know. It's just, he's kind of like a Nicolas Cage, but like didn't have to deal with all that weird stuff. He's just like, he does movies he enjoys, and I think he always brings everything he can to a film.
Yeah. And I think that really helps, you know, like when you work on a movie and you work with someone that is truly passionate about the project, it kind of elevates your acting and your performance. In this movie in particular, I think Willem Dafoe did an amazing job portraying a very eccentric, crazy scientist and who has a very skewed view on the world because of his upbringing.
Yeah.
But I guess we can talk about the backstory of Bella Baxter. You know, like how she came into the first scene. Do you remember the details? Like, I think she committed.
So yeah, the first scene is her standing on a bridge and then her just falling off.
Yeah, and then so Willem Dafoe's character replays her brain with a baby's brain.
Talking about spoilers.
I mean,
there we go.
Yeah. I mean, but I don't think this has much to do with like what she been through later.
I think it's just like the starting point.
Yeah.
Because so later in the film she finds out what actually happened, because a doctor that he gets to help, he finds out what actually happened, that they switched the child. The lady committed not alive. She dies, and the child was still alive. And in his mind, the only way to save her was to take the brain out of the mother and then put the child's brain in the head of the mother.
That's a logical conclusion. Like, one
Apparently.
thing is alive, one thing is dead. Just combine them.
Yeah, well, because early in the movie, because it doesn't come across yet, but I think when she's like walking down the hall and then she's followed by a dog with a duck head. So I think at that point, like, even I can't remember if you've seen Willem Dafoe's character at this point, but you're like, oh, something weird's going on here. It isn't quite all normal.
And it really reminds me of the Frankenstein movie, like when you put like different parts of things together. And throughout the movie, we follow Bella's journey from, I guess, an infant into a grown woman who experiences the world. Can we talk about some of the favorite scenes in the movie without spoilers?
I feel like we've already done it.
I mean, it's just one of the big spoilers.
There's so, like, early on, there's like, it's so hard to like choose her like eating dinner. I love the first scene when they're eating together, and she's just like a child watching, because Willem Dafoe's like body's completely wrecked, so he needs like a whole extension like plugged into him so he can eat properly, and he does like a weird burp and it has like the bubble.
Yeah,
I thought that was like a great scene.
Yeah. My favorite scene would be when she saw a bunch of poor people.
When she like breaks down, when
yeah.
she's like, "Oh, we need to help them."
Yeah, and I think
the
that was
guy's like,
an
"We
amazing
can't."
scene. Yeah,
Because this is her learning, and she's like, "Why can't we just help them?" And the guy's like explaining to her, he's like, "It doesn't work that way." He's like, "They would take advantage of us if we went down there and tried to help them, and if they were in our position, they wouldn't come to help us, and if we were in their position, we would do the same thing they would do."
Yeah.
Kind of saying like, it is the way of the world.
Yeah.
And this character at this point has said to her, he's a pessimist and has a very bleak look at the world, and saying that everything's kind of bad. What's the point?
yeah. And I think her performance during this set piece was really captivating because I think during this time when she learned about the unflattering truth of the world, I guess she still had a choice in a way. She could just turn her back to it. I was like, oh yeah, this is it has nothing to do with me. But then her I guess organic reaction was like, oh, why can't I help him?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
the feelings of frustration and helplessness reveals that deep down she's a good person.
Yeah, because she still tries to help them later, which is also a sad scene when she like gets all the money up and like she's like, I've got to give these to the kids, and the dockmen are like, oh, we can do it. We're staying here. We can do it. He's like, oh, really? Will you do it? He's like, yeah. Yeah, we'll definitely give all this money to them.
Well, I mean, technically we are one of the poor people as well.
But that's like, it's like another like layer to it all, where it's like, you want to help somebody, but you got to do it the right way as well. It still happens in our world where people abuse that to be like, hey, give me money because I'm going to help this person. It's like, no, they're taking all the money for themselves.
Fair enough.
So it's like another bleak, it's kind of weird because it's like, she's had this big like moment of like, I can't help these people. And then she tries and still doesn't help them.
Yeah.
Which is still like sad in itself because it's like, oh, she does try the only way she thinks she can.
Yeah. What else do you like about this movie?
I just really, because it does discuss a lot of hard things,
Yes.
like from the side of a woman. Like,
Yeah.
because she's a child early on, she has like a lot of things happen to her that are just like, she doesn't understand.
Yes.
Where the men clearly know what's going on and trying to control the situation.
Yes.
This is like Mark Ruffalo's character where he's trying to control her the whole time
Yeah.
because she's like a dumb kid and he's like trying to
That's horrible.
abuse her and like use her because she doesn't know any better.
Yeah.
And that's why he takes her out into the world like, oh, look at all this stuff and like this is what we can do and like I can make you feel good and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And she's just a kid's like, oh yeah, this feels good. I'm having fun. This is fine.
Yeah.
But later in the movie, when they're on the cruise,
Yeah.
she's getting smarter and becoming like growing up.
Yeah.
And then Mark Ruffalo's like, oh, where you used to be funner. You used to, well, the way you used to speak. And it's like she's getting smarter and figuring out this guy's a dipshit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like a sad side of like men only liked her because she was a bit stupid
Yeah.
and naive, and then he
Yeah.
could use that to control her.
Yeah.
And hence he did it to get her on the boat. It's like, oh, we're going on an adventure. Jump inside this crate. And
That's crazy.
Yeah,
Like
so-
he literally smuggled her onto the cruise ship. That's dark. But I guess one of the favorite things I like about this movie is just like how how fearless Emma Stone was with her performance. I think we have already established that she's know exactly what she wants, and then she would go for it. Throughout her past roles, that she was always very brave in terms of portraying like different characters. But I think this is like really at the peak of her performance. Like she would just go for it for all the performances.
because it's really hard to be like, you got to pretend to be a child as an adult, which is like a hard thing to portray without it being stupid.
Yeah.
Like it's a very hard thing to be like, oh, they're acting like a child. But I think she does do a fairly good job through the whole movie because I feel like the movie wouldn't work at all without her performance.
I
Because
think
she's
so,
like the center point of the whole film.
Yeah.
And her like not delivering at any point would make it feel fake. Where it does, this whole thing's insane, but it does feel believable from like the character. You do follow her along and like all the hardships she goes through and all the things she has to deal with it, and you kind of feel like it's genuine.
Yeah.
Because she's obviously still naive and she's learning all these things along the way. And when someone's like, oh no, that's wrong, and she's like, why? She's like, why should it be wrong? Why is this wrong? And they're like, oh, because. And it's like, no, there's no reason behind it. It's because they think it's wrong, even though it shouldn't be wrong.
Yeah.
And that's what I kind of like. That kind of whole thing through this story. It's kind of like all these things that people are telling her are wrong, which aren't really wrong.
Yeah.
So it's literally because men don't like it, essentially.
Yeah.
Essentially.
No, fair enough. And I think, comparing to all the I guess the far right movies, I really enjoy this one because at the end of the day, you know, the underlying subtext and the message is just part of the movie. Like we have to relate to the character, we have to understand their struggle.
Which obviously it's hard for both of us because we're not like, you know, never had to deal with anything like this or deal from the fact of like someone trying to like control us in any way.
Yeah.
Like as a woman, we're never going to have that experience of something like what's ever happened to her in this whole film, or even just a woman's life in general.
Yeah.
But like I feel like it does do a very good job if you're willing to like listen to the film and like watch it and try to, you know, convey what it's trying to tell. Because I have seen other women even say like, oh, this feels a bit gross, which I can see that. It does feel gross. The whole Mark Ruffalo thing, and even early on, when he Willem Dafoe's character hires the doctor and he's like asking her to help him, and the first thing he says, this is a pretty retard. And I'm like, oh my God. This feels so like terrible. Yeah. And then later on, he's like talking about him marrying her. Yeah. When she's still like one or something like mentally.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, why haven't you tried to sleep with her? And he's like, oh, I can't get an erection. I literally can't have sex with her, which is sad as well. It's like, why didn't you abuse her? And it's like, oh my God, this is like, it's really rough at the start. I can see it can turn off people because it's like, this is dealing with a lot of rough stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not easy to deal with, but stuff that does happen in the world, which it is sad because it's literally like a young girl and it's like, oh, why didn't you try to like take advantage of this? Yeah. Even though we do have a character later, Mark Ruffalo's character comes along and literally uses that to abuse her essentially.
Yeah, and I think this is a phenomenal movie. So anything you want to add before we wrap up this episode about Emma Stone?
No, because I honestly, I would like to do our own video on Poor Things because I do think it has a lot of stuff going on. But no, I just think she's an amazing actress, and she's doing another movie with Mr. Yogurt.
Yeah, Mr. Yogurt, the Greek yogurt.
Yogov.
Yes, Yorgos. I think it's called Kind of
Kindness.
Yeah,
so interesting to see what they do next. And I've also heard that she might even be taking a role in directing soon, which is, I feel like the next step for her is like the next progression in her career. Yeah. So I'm always interested to see what she's going to do next.
Awesome. And I guess when I hope that you guys enjoy this episode, and you know, let us know what you think about Emma. And I guess we'll see you in the next episode. I'm Darren.
And I'm Tim.
This has been Movie Beings.